This video is brought to you and powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, home of the fastest payouts in the industry and a match bonus of 150% on your first three deposits for up to $2,000. Bet responsibly. Let's get to it. Seems like we're making this a weekly occurrence on the channel. We're bringing on friend of the show, friend in real life, NFL insider and beat reporter for the Washington Commanders, host of the Lake Lewis Jr. podcast, my guy, Lake Lewis. How we doing today, my dad?
What's going on, Rio? Good to see you as always.
Oh yeah, Lake just touched back down to Ashburn from a flight. But what was the mood like in Tampa? What was the crowd split between the fans like, and what was the mood going into week one's matchup against the Bucks?
I mean, everything was upbeat, going into Tampa. In pregame, guys were out on the field. It was hot. It was extremely hot. But guys just looked like they were ready to play football. And then for whatever reason, they just did not look like what I saw all summer. This didn't. And I sincerely mean this to the fans out there. This is a different group of players and a different setup. It's definitely a professional setup, but it just didn't look like that for whatever reason on Sunday. And they have some questions they have to answer, and they have to do it quickly because let's face it, in the locker room afterwards, even talking with Dan Quinn afterwards, there was no sense of panic at all. It was just,
None.
We kind of shot ourselves in the foot a lot. Tampa was the better team today, but I don't think they felt like this is just them. And, it was the first game a lot of these guys hadn't played together, whether, be free agents or rookies or just because of injuries or giving vets off games during preseason. And then to go into Tampa in a 90 plus on the field, it was over 100 degrees. So, you have to think about those things. That stuff weighs on guys like the Bobby Wagners, older players who, you could see he was moving a little slow. It was hot, man. There was no way to get around it. And that's not an excuse, Rio. It's just a cold reality that if you haven't played any preseason games and then your first game is against frontline NFL talent, in that kind of heat on the road, sometimes those things will come back and bite you. And I do think that bit Washington from a cohesive standpoint.
Definitely bit Washington. And as I looked around and watched condensed versions of every game played on Sunday, week one looks like an extended version of the preseason. There's a lot of wacky shit going on in week one, a lot of bad quarterback and offensive play. 17 quarterbacks threw for 200 yards or less. Offenses aren't getting going. And you could definitely see guys like Jonathan Allen and Bobby Wagner sucking wind. Like, you could tell that Tampa Bay climate was getting to him, because I haven't seen Bobby Wagner look that slow ever. Like, he was moving around like John Bostic out there. It had me a little bit perplexed for a second. But we go down there, we lose 37-20 to a Tampa Bay team who was a playoff football team. I think a lot of fans and media, I think we get so excited about the offseason. We all started to underrate and undervalue just how good that Tampa Bay football team was. But we did have our opportunities on Sunday. So we're going to start with the quarterback. I thought he easily played the best of the three rookie quarterbacks who made their debuts on Sunday. A lot of rookie mistakes. He looked like a rookie, but unlike the other two guys, we got to see a glimpse of Jaden Daniels' superpowers, the superpowers of having a quarterback who can change the game with his legs as well as his arm. I think he left a little bit to be desired, and he got gun shy as the presser was getting to him. But despite all those blitzes, no turnovers on the day. He recovered the fumbles he dropped, no interceptions, not that many turnover-worthy plays, and he put together 270 yards of offense and scored twice. Give me your week one evaluation of Jaden Daniels in his debut.
I gave Jaden Daniels a solid B, man. I think, and I tweeted this out yesterday while I was at the airport. I was just, sitting at the airport, had nothing but time, and I see all these, fans saying that he looked bad, and I'm like, what planet did you see this guy playing?
Right.
Like seriously, if you thought that Jaden Daniels looked bad, then you need to reevaluate your fandom, and you need to reevaluate you being an NFL fan, because I say the Buccaneer players were helping him up by the second quarter. And I say that sincerely. They were showing him love, man. They were showing him respect. After the game, guys on the field going over to him. You could see a couple guys want to take pictures with him. I'm telling you, if your eyes did not see something special, I don't know what to tell you, because as you said, he extended plays. And I'll just put it to you in layman terms. Any quarterback from the past 5 years playing that game Sunday, and they might have had 50 hung on them because Jaden Daniels single-handedly kept drives alive. And if it wasn't for so many people chirping in his ear about get down, get down, get down, he might have taken one of those to the house. He kind of gave up a little bit after he got his 25, 30 yards. I think now he knows he's that dude, and he can do it on this level, and he can do it at a high rate. And I expect to see nothing but him getting better and better and better. Did he have rookie moments? Of course he did. But a lot of quarterbacks, like you said on week one, starters, NFL veterans, were overthrowing guys. That's just called chemistry and cohesion. I think he makes that throw 7 out of 10 times to Terry. It just happened to be the one time that it didn't work was in that first game, and it came at a crucial time. So for everyone writing me, telling me that what was I looking at, he looked gun shy, and he looked like he was just ready to be RG3 all over again and run every chance he got. I mean, you're really under evaluating some things, man. Listen, I know I'm getting long-winded here, but I just get mad about this stuff.
I get mad about it too. It pisses me off as a fan, because what game are y'all watching? See, the people who say those things, they are the people that cling to the Taylor Heineke's, the Sam Howells of the world. Sam would have did better. Sam would have threw 9 interceptions on Sunday versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Clearly, there would have been turnovers, and it would have been a sheer beating. They got beat down the other day, but I mean, at least he kept them in the game. And then you go back to certain plays. It was a horrible, call against Washington. Where they brought, that puts the ball in the red zone, and you're cooking at that point because they were moving the ball at that point. First time this offensive line kind of played together, and Brandon Coleman didn't play the whole game. So, now he's going to be ready come the Giants. He should be. So now you'll start to see some things fall into play. And I'll say this, don't panic after week one, man. It was the first game of the season. Now, if they go out and stink it up against the Giants, you hit the panic button.
Yes, you hit the red button.
You hit the red button if they come in at home and stink it up against a team that, Daniel Jones has had some days against them. So now, if you want to be that defense that you claim to want to be, if you want to be a better team, then you have to beat the Giants, because they looked absolutely dreadful against Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. If you thought we looked bad, go turn on that Giants versus Vikings tape. They did not get in the end zone one time. No. Jayden is the only reason our offense scored any points on Sunday, because he saved drives with his legs. But to be objectively speaking, there were things obviously that he left on the field. I'm sure he's pulling his twist out watching the film of this game, because he knows, for one, he's an accurate deep ball passer. He's a pinpoint deep ball passer. He's not going to miss that throw to Terry too many more times. It's the first play of the second half. You're coming out cold, straight out the locker room. Cliff Kingsbury dials up a shot play to our number one receiver. Terry runs right by Jamel Dean. I think his rookie eyes saw Jamel Dean standing flat-footed and said, "Oh, I got to throw this shit. I got us. I got us."
Instantly. Yeah. I still think Terry may could have laid out for that too, but that's just me.
I think it's possible, but Terry body catching ass, I'm not expecting that.
Right.
That's definitely on the court. I'm gonna put that one on Jayden. I think there was another time Terry was lined up out of the slot. One of the 3 times Terry was not on the outside, for those people counting where Terry's aligned. I think that's a silly narrative. But Terry was lined up in a slot fade. Slot fade was Jaden Daniels' money ball at LSU. I think he has a shot to Terry, but I think a lot of the pressure and where they were bringing it from, he did get gun shy. And that's to be expected from a rookie quarterback. Go watch Bo Nix and Caleb Williams play. You're going to feel a lot different about how Jayden played Sunday. He got in the end zone, 16 carries. That's what I want to talk about before we close the Jaden Daniels conversation. I saw Miss Candy ask him, 16 carries, is that sustainable for a quarterback? Him and Lamar ran it 16 times. I don't know if I ever want to see 16 carries by the quarterback again, but they kind of needed them on Sunday just to get something going. What do you think about?
But not to cut you off, Rio, but I do want to say this to fans too, because all these fans keep talking about he's going to be like RG3 and get hurt. And first of all, although Robert was north-south fast, he wasn't twitchy like that. You know what I mean? He didn't have that kind of movement. Jayden is eerily similar to Lamar, and Lamar got hurt where? In the pocket, not from running around. Lamar had his injuries from being in the pocket. So you can't take away a God-given strength from these guys that make them special. This is just the way the game is going. And I think fans have to understand when they're talking about he has to learn how to slide. No, he doesn't, because he's going down head first. That's his slide. He didn't take any unnecessary hits until the very end of the game, where he was just trying to get those touchdowns. He was trying to make something happen. But with the overall scheme of the game, every time he got out and ran, there was only one time he took a really tough shot. But he got back up. I mean, it is football, man. You're going to get hit sometimes.
Yep, he got up gingerly a couple times, but I just hate fans. There are some fans coming in with pre-assumed disdain, and they're wishing failure on the quarterback. I don't know what it is, but they're just typecasting him and ready to throw the running back label at him. I don't see Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen getting these type of comments thrown at them, and they played the exact same way. But I ain't
Baker,
or Baker,
who was doing it all game long, running around, extending plays.
Yep.
Just no one could hit him. That's not his fault. He was going to do that regardless if he took a hit or not. So for Jayden to do it, now all of a sudden we have the second coming of RG3. If anyone thinks that, you really don't know football. There's no comparisons between those guys outside the fact that, you know, they can move around outside the pocket. Jayden is a superior passer to Robert. There's no question about that.
Hell yeah, I call that predetermined analysis. But Jaden Daniels, he kept us alive. I'm expecting a better game from 5 and a better offensive plan from Cliff Kingsbury in week 2. You just brought up Baker, just to jump onto the defensive side of the ball right now. We've heard all the reputation about Dan Quinn, about Joe Witt Jr. How did you feel about Washington getting close but no cigar? We got close to Baker all day, weren't able to take him down, but one time on the day, Cleveland Farrell, it was a lot of misses. He was sliding off us and maneuvering the pocket. 4 touchdowns, no picks. He made Washington's defense look silly. How did you feel about the first defensive showing from the new Washington Commanders?
It wasn't good. I mean, just no way to put it. You know, they couldn't get Tampa off the field on third downs. You know, Tampa owned them on third down, their third down conversion to extend drives when, you know, you feel like, okay, they're getting some momentum here and you can get the ball back to your offense who was starting to get going. They just could never, you know, sustain anything on defense. And one thing I noticed too, going back and watching film and even, you know, in the stadium, we were saying it's the new guys that are out here making plays. It wasn't Duran, it wasn't John Allen,
Nope.
it wasn't Forbes, it wasn't St. Juice. I mean, although in fairness to Benji, I mean, he was where he was supposed to be on some of those balls he got beat. It was just Hall of Famer catching the football.
He always seems to be in the right vicinity, but just a step too late.
The extra step to knock it away. I get that. You know, Emanuel, you know, struggled, and that's why he took him out the game. So yeah, I mean, we all knew going into this, you know, on both sides of the ball, receivers and corners, we knew that was going to be something that, you know, do they have the playmakers that can really make a difference on the field all across the board on both sides of the ball at those skill positions. You know, their safeties, you know, there was a time where they started getting thrown on over top of them and they looked like they were a little confused. You know, their safeties, as great as they are as tacklers, their safeties aren't really cover guys, you know. So, right, they're all guys that will come down in the box and put a hat on you. those are going to be things teams are going to exploit if what? You don't have a pass rush. And if you have a pass rush, you have to get to the quarterback. And yeah, they may have put some pressure on Baker, and Baker was playing Houdini running around out there, but you got to get to him. You got to frustrate him. Baker looked too comfortable on Sunday. And for my money, that might be the best game of Baker Mayfield's career. That's how comfortable he looked against Washington.
I know. And not to mention, they're also ushering in a new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen. That is his first game as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator. Dave Canales goes to Carolina, who they called a little bit of a quarterback whisperer. He's going there to save Bryce. The first game of that looked bad, by the way. But Baker, like, I understand as an objective fan, you're not going to sack guys 5 or 6 times every week of the season. You're just not going to do it. But you can force incompletions. You can force errant throws. You can make him throw it to your defenders. You can make him throw it to the ground. You can take him to the ground while he has to force the ball out. He looked so comfortable under constant chaos. We were getting back there on a regular basis. Dorrance Armstrong, it felt so surprising and refreshing to see an edge rusher have a spin move. He actually has pass rush moves. It worked effectively a few times, still got to the quarterback to sack him 0 time. Daron Payne and John Allen. I know a lot of new guys here. They're trying to catch up to speed. John Allen and Daron Payne got big contract extensions here. They're supposed to be the anchors and leaders of the defense. They still play the disappearing act for 2 to 3 quarters at a time. I'm watching John Allen and Payne get thrown off Baker like a rag doll. Talk to me about Payne and Allen, and if at some point does one of them become expendable to get sold off like Chase Young and Montez Sweat did last year?
Man, let me tell you something, man. And it's real. I talked about it in my post-game thing after the game. Listen, John Allen was the first player on the bus. That to me lacks of not leadership. To me, that's cowardice.
So he was the first person dressed. He didn't stick around there.
Dressed onto the bus, went right past us. And I wasn't happy about that. And I'm still not happy about that. And I'm a grown man. I'll face these guys in the locker room, whatever. They can be mad. And my style isn't to attack any player. But that right there can't be the case from the guy who's on the field pregame with everybody around him, trying to hype them up, trying to talk and get them going. I don't want to see that rah-rah stuff, and then you're escaping out the back door. I don't like that. I just don't, because if that's a leader, you have to stand there and face the music. And we know John has spoken several times about his frustrations in the past. And then the following week, when you can kind of fix that a little bit, you don't have a good game. And my thing is, what we're seeing is, and I feel convinced about this. What I saw was Mikey Sanders still competing. Yeah, he was going up against perhaps the best slot guy in the league.
He struggled for sure.
Chris Godwin, and the guy who's bigger too, big slot guy too, by the way. And then you have a Hall of Famer on the other end, and Mike Evans. My thing is this. Mikey Sanders still got beat sometimes, but he was there and he was competing and he was putting his hat in on tackles
to the whistle.
And for him to have to make tackles like that so many times in their secondary, because they were running the ball right up the middle of the field, literally. Right. The strength of this team is supposed to be their 2 anchors and that middle linebacker in the middle. I'm going to take this off Bobby Wagner. Yeah, Bobby looked slow the other day, looked tired, looked winded. First game, because he didn't play in the preseason. But he shouldn't have to always be in contention to have to run down a running back who's gashed the middle of your portion of your front. And this, I hope, doesn't become a thing, Rio, because we do know, although Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. had these great defenses in Dallas as far as forcing turnovers, they got ran on quite a bit up the middle of the field. There wasn't an emphasis on those 2 tackles. Well, now you have that here. You would think, okay, would make their defensive plan even better. Well, I'm just saying, man, Jerzon Newton, B. Mitch and me were talking about this after the game.
Suit up.
Listen, man, that pregame workout, Reach out to B Mitchell and he'll tell you the same thing. It was insane. And that's a different dude, man. And I'm gonna also drop another nugget on you. I'm gonna mention it in my pod today. Adam Peters was standing in that tunnel with us after the game, and he was pissed. Let me just tell you, mild mannered, always smiling, always cool with us, Adam Peters. You didn't even want to be within 2 feet standing near him. He was
I love to hear that.
angry.
I love that.
And literally stormed off down the tarmac to go in their locker room before they were coming. I loved it. I absolutely loved it because that's not going to be accepted here. That tucking your tail and letting people drag you in the back of the alley to do what they want with you and you don't resist. That's what we've seen for years. I always call it a back alley slapping. That's what we see. Nah, you got to fight this, man. You can't accept this losing mentality. And when you go back and watch the film and you go back, it was the new guys that were out there competing.
Yep.
The old guard kind of looked like, what do they do when things go bad? Yeah, man, it's just one of them games. It's about to check. Well, those guys are going to get moved out of here with that. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I think definitely one of them is going to be expendable. I hate the thing you tell me about John Allen being the first on the bus. I'm sure there's frustrations with his own play on top of the team's play, but you're one of the leaders. You come out and give the remember the Titan speech before every game.
Got to do better. I got to play better. You mean don't just duck out, man. You know, and I think people are tired of that. I know I am, and I know some of my colleagues are too. So it's just when you don't think that they didn't draft Newton with these things in mind.
Hell yeah. And Jonathan Allen, they can come easily off them books in 2025. It's too soon to be talking about players coming and going, but I think the book and the experiment is almost over with a certain cornerback on this team. Number 13, Emanuel Forbes Jr. Was he injured? Was he benched? Was he all of the above? He is one of the first corners I've ever seen hold, face mask, and get beat all in one play. He is finding new ways to blaze a trail as a bad cornerback for this football team. How long do we do this thing with Emanuel Forbes and pretend like he's not one of the worst corners we've ever seen come through here?
Yeah, you notice the sad part about it is, man, I like Emanuel quite a bit. He's a really good kid. He is very respectful, means well. And I think, unfortunately, his rookie year was just so disastrous from a lack of coaching and preparation. It just totally stripped him of any confidence that he came in with, you know. And now you're seeing that they reached for him in that first round. And that's not knocking him. I mean, he's a professional player. But when you get drafted in the first round and you get drafted over some guys that are balling, like a Christian Gonzalez, that's the standard for you now. You've got to be just as good as him, if not better, because you went before him when most people thought Gonzalez was the perfect pick for this team. So when you see him struggle, and we've seen it a lot, it leaves you to wonder, you know, was this a reach at that position? And, you know, for him to get benched, that's in the first game. That says a lot, man. That normally when you bench a guy, you don't put him back in the next game. So I might be inclined to say I don't expect for him to start against the Giants. If he does start against the Giants and struggle again, his benching will be permanent after that. So we'll see what happens, man. But yeah, you're right, Rio. It's it just makes you wonder, like, when you go back and look at these former draft picks, you know, from the previous regimes, it goes to show you that some of the talent evaluation was lacking, man. I mean, they picked some guys that other teams, there was a reason why some of these guys fell. John Allen, you know, we know about the shoulder and why he fell in the draft coming from Bama. But some people were like, there were other linemen at Bama that made him look good. And sometimes you start to wonder these things now.
Hell yeah, I'm looking at the Washington Commanders could have been lineup. Christian Darrisaw over Jamin Davis. Even though Jamin Davis had a good game for Washington, he flashed. He had a rep versus Tristan.
He had one of the better games.
he had a rep versus Tristan Wirfs. I had no idea it was Jamin at first. I said, wow, that looks like a defensive end. But to go revisionist history, Christian Darrisaw over Jamin Davis, Chris Olave over Jahan Dotson, and Christian Gonzalez over Emanuel Forbes. Adam Peters is looking at a different Washington. Matter of fact, Adam Peters may not be here because Ron may be still coaching that team. So maybe they did the right thing by missing on all those picks so we could get a start over and a reprieve. But now they have to pick and prod which players are going to be a part of the foundation of the new look Washington Commanders. So I love hearing you say that football guy, GM Adam Peters, was livid and he was not okay with the effort. You know, it may not look pretty, but effort, guys not looking conditioned and guys not fighting to the whistle, that shit is inexcusable. I'm looking at the receiver room box score. 4 catches for 50 yards. 3 catches for 49 yards. Zach Ertz, 3 catches for 28 yards. None of those guys are wide receivers. Your starting receiver, Terry, 2 for 17. McCaffrey, 3 for 18. De'Ami Brown dropped a documentary and they did not record a catch on Sunday. The wide receiver room, talk to me about it. And how soon can Noah Brown be activated to the active roster? Because it looks like we need some help and a jump start in that room.
I would expect Noah to be playing Sunday against the Giants. They needed a physical receiver, especially in this type of football game. And to make matters worse, the Buccaneers had 2 safeties go down in a corner, and they still couldn't exploit anything. And those, if you talk about Terry and you talk about Ertz, and De'Ami, you can't because he didn't get anything. Those catches for those guys came in the second half. Fourth quarter for Terry when he got 1. He had 1 going into the fourth quarter. So people are going to say, oh, you know, you got to target him more. You got to feed him the ball. And he's getting double teamed, so somebody else has to step up. Again, I'm saying to fans, stop it. Because Justin Jefferson gets double teamed. Jamar Chase gets double teamed. There's all the greats are going to get double teamed. That's just how it is. There's somebody on them pressing, and then there's a safety high right over top of them. That's what they do. Sometimes they'll roam a linebacker over to chip them if they get past the corner. I mean, there's always something to eliminate your best talent. But the last time I looked, those guys still hauling in over 100 balls
every season.
So my point is, now you have to start to ask the question about Terry. You know, this is the first game. I get it. Love Terry to death. That's my guy. But is Terry a true 1A? That's what I'm talking about. Is Terry a 1A on other teams? That's the type of stuff that I think the Adam Peters and Dan Quinns have to identify, is that Washington has really good players, but what I saw on Sunday was that their quarterback is their best talent. He's their best player. Don't even come at me with trying to find somebody else better than him, because you're not going to find it. He's the type of guy that defenses are going to now have to key on and game plan for. They've never had that with anybody before. Let's just call it like it is. And if you really want to do some revisionist history, I don't think Washington's had a player that struck fear in people across the league. You got to go back to Sean Taylor. If you ask me, they haven't had that guy. Maybe Robert, his rookie year, was starting to get a buzz like that, but people still knew if you took his wheels away, he wasn't going to beat you with his arm. So now you have a guy that is in a situation to change the narrative, but he needs some help, man. Let's just call it like it is. Do they have a guy on the outside that can make a play when you absolutely have to have it? I'm asking that question fairly. This isn't to knock what's on the roster, but this is our job. Do they have that? I don't know if they do. Terry can make some plays, but you said it yourself. Terry isn't a hands receiver. He's a body catcher. That's been his game. He'll get a 50-50 there. But we've seen far too many games where Terry had 3 receptions, 4 receptions. I don't know what it is. Maybe they do need to target him more. But I also know that if you come into your season with De'Ami Brown as your number 2, I'm sorry, man. That's just that's not gonna cut it when you can look across the league and see certain teams that have 2-3 receivers, and maybe one of those receivers could be here and possibly be a 1. So that's all I'm saying, man. I think our eyes were open to see the reality of the players who've been here compared to the new guys. And there is a difference between these new younger players. Mikey Samuels's a pro, bro. I mean, he's
Oh yeah,
he's
I'm not
legit.
worried about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not worried about
he's legit. But you can see that already. He's probably their best cornerback right now
him
as a rookie.
already.
What does that tell you about the other guys? So that's all I'm saying, man.
And I'm not mad at you about that take. For just to shoot Terry just a little bit of bail. The narrative may have been a little different if one Jayden hits him on the deep ball to open up the second half. It may have gave us a jump start in the second half. Maybe if he looks Terry's way on the slot fade that he ran or on the deep dig, but you shouldn't have to be that creative to get your number one receiver the ball, because number one receivers find a way. They're open when they're not open. You throw it to them. I don't care if there's double coverage. You're going to find a way to get Justin Jettas the ball, to get Jamar Chase the ball, to get Chris Olave the ball. Those guys are going to find a way to create targets for themselves if you do not create them for them. Luke McCaffrey leading the receiver room with catches in week 1 is not something I'm too excited about. I want to talk about the coordinators for a second. I know people want Cliff Kingsbury to fail so desperately. Like, they want to push the narrative. They want to talk about how he lines them up and runs the same. He spreads receivers out and has them run a bunch of nothing routes all day. He may open it up for a deep ball once in a while. He even got cute on a third down and had
That was a terrible call.
To Luke McCaffrey. But upon seeing it again on film, if Luke throws that bitch back to Jayden, they had the blockers in front of him, and they probably would have picked up most of those yards back, because Jayden was about to boogie in the open field. Give me your snapshot analysis of Cliff's first game in DC.
It was wishy-washy. It was, man. You know, I mean, and again, I made it a point this year, man, to just not I can't keep pushing the Kool-Aid, man. You know, we've tried it, and they have to get better in a lot of areas. And I do think with Cliff, you see moments where it's like, okay, I like this. It's definitely more innovative than anything they've had. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a professional offense now. They do. But the bubble screens, things like that, I do want to see the ball go down the field more, because you have a quarterback that can do it. But do you have the weapons that can create the type of plays that he might need in this offense? That was the same thing that was hindering him in Arizona. You had a dynamic quarterback, but from a receiver standpoint, I think at the time DeAndre Hopkins was there. So that's Terry, okay? So, but they didn't have other things going on. I don't think Fitzgerald was there at that point. You know, so some of these offenses, you need pieces. You need the right pieces. I like Zach Ertz a lot. I think he's a great tight end. You know, but I think you're going to have to see 2 or 3 guys emerge within this offense, Rio. You're going to see it. Austin Eckler had a really good game too, by the way.
Very. Feed him.
You know, Brian Robinson had a good game, you know, when he was getting the football. So maybe this next game comes down to running the football a little bit more, man. You know, taking some of the pressure off of Jayden to have to be all world all the time. And also allowing for your offensive linemen who hadn't played, who hadn't played together pretty much throughout the preseason. It gives them a chance to lather up and get their feet under them. So, and then, I mean, you're going up against a Giants team where you throw the records out when these NFC East teams play each other. The Giants do have some pass rush specialists that really weren't on display Sunday against the Vikings, but we all know the lights come on for them when they come to Washington.
Definitely.
So you got to run the football, man. You got to do some things. So I think for Cliff, no trickery. I don't want to see that. I did not like that call with McCaffrey. I understand if it worked, great, but they were moving the football, and they needed to get that extra first down, man, to continue that, because things were starting to come around, and to run that play in the middle of the field, you know, like I think they were like at the 48-yard line.
It was like third and infinity too. Like, yeah, it was like
that's not it, man. You know, at least get 10 back, man. Maybe you can. Well,
go for it on fourth.
You could go for it because K wasn't making the field goal. I mean, that dude was horrible.
I know.
On Sunday, kicked the ball out of bounds when they did score. I mean, You knew he was gone. After, I mean, there was no doubt that they were going to have to move on. We asked Dan Quinn that in the press conference afterwards, and he said that's something we have to look into. That's your
Dan
answer.
Quinn is he's very honest, man. They wasted no time getting Cade York out of here. We're now on kicker number 5 this season. This has to be close to an NFL record for a rotation of kickers in one season. We're now at week 2 and we're on our 5th kicker. Let's hope Austin Seibert can do his job. But to put a final bow on week 1, Dan Quinn touched out to y'all yesterday. He reached out to the media. He said they're going to have Tell the Truth Mondays or something along those lines. I like the transparency there. You've seen a lot of coaching staffs come and go, and you've seen how they respond to losses and embarrassing games. How do you feel the mood was with Dan Quinn and the atmosphere around the coaching staff going forward into week 2?
The one thing I like about Dan Quinn is, as you said, he's honest. And he's very thoughtful in his approach and how he answers stuff. Doesn't just blurt stuff out. Doesn't let the emotion get the best of him. He almost comes across as a teacher, which he is as a coach.
Yes.
So there was no sense of panic. It was a lot of things that he did say he was surprised. He did say he was surprised with the lack of tackling and energy out there. He did say that. He said because that's not what we want to be. So saying that, that's something they're going to work on. They're going to have to be flying around out there because we didn't see what we were expecting. The Joe Witt type defense, get to the ball. Remember the comment? We want to get there with bad intentions or, with disdain for whatever, we didn't see that consistently, at least. So I think for Dan Quinn, and his staff, they're up front, man. I think they all will tell you that they got their tails handed to them. And, was it a preparation thing? Was it a scheme thing? It was probably all of the above. But the one thing I do like about this coaching staff and this organization is that there will be a call to action. They will not let what happened Sunday be the norm and be consistent and be New York and then be Cincinnati, then be Arizona, where we saw that in years past, where it was just, arms folded and just, let it happen. No, it's not going to. I'm telling you, man, we saw Adam Peters real, bro. If I could have taken a picture of him, obviously I wouldn't be ever back in that building, but
you wouldn't do that.
Right. But that's my point. I've never seen that ever before, ever, from a coach or there was no GMs, but I've never saw that from anybody. It was just whatever, you just keep on, move on to another day and then whatever. But no, man, this first game was almost a good thing that happened. Because there is no false hope here. There is no sense of it. It's reality. And the reality is this football team is going to have to scrape and claw and scratch and fight for everything they get. And that's the way you want it, man. That's how you're going to build some character for this thing going forward.
That is music to my ears. That's culture. They're not okay with it. None of that stoic ignorance starting to snipe back and forth with the media and make excuses for what took place. We're going to take accountability that we were not it on Sunday. We watched the tape and he comes to face the media. I love it as we go into week 2. One last question to close this out because I'm going to preview the game on other channels and streams and stuff. Week 2. We got our kryptonite on the schedule, or at least the kryptonite of former Washington's past. The one get right and elixir game for Daniel Jones. Matter of fact, the 2 every year because Daniel Jones is 5-1-1 versus the Commanders. He looked like absolute ass in week 1, and he's thrown more pick sixes than touchdowns since he got a $160 million contract, 40 million years guaranteed. What would it mean if Washington started 0-2 and lost to that team and that quarterback specifically?
I'm going to say this, man. If they lose this game to New York, there will be some changes made and some egos bruised because it would just get this regime off to the wrong start. And it would show that the losers on the roster, and I say that, I'm calling it like it is.
We
When you
did lose a lot.
when guys who've lost a lot as pros, I'm not
Mhm.
saying they're losers as people. I'm saying
Mhm.
as professional football players, they're losers. They haven't won. You don't want your rookies who are coming from the Michigans and coming from the LSUs and coming from these football factories where they were winning. You know, you do not want them to start to become exactly what those veterans have become. And
Yep.
some of those veterans were coming from, the big time programs where they probably lost more in their rookie season and they probably did their whole life combined before that.
Oh man.
So now this is all they know. So when they have a chance to make a play, when they have a chance to steal a victory, they don't know how to do it as a pro. So if they were to lose to the Giants, you have to change things. You have to change some of these veterans, move some other guys in there, and just give them a chance. Because let's face it, can it get any worse if you were to lose to the Giants?
Right, where they're asking Dayball, should he make a quarterback change 1 week into the season? They did not score a touchdown in week 1. You cannot go out and lose to this football team. And like you said, like, we don't need these young guys picking up losing habits from losing players. And it may come off harsh to you, but I will look straight into the camera and say, all we've fucking done here is lose for the last 25 years. So everybody's ass is accountable to be held to the fire. I appreciate you coming on for our weekly wrap up. We're wrapping up week 1 and transitioning on to week 2. Let the folks know where they can find you and what you got coming on your platform.
Oh man, appreciate that. You can follow me on social media at Lake Lewis Jr. So it's Lake Lewis Jr. And that's on all social media platforms. You can go to sportsjourney.com where stuff that I do, we post on there. Sunday after the game, post game, be down there with Natalie Swallow on ABC, Channel 7 back home. Yeah, and then of course my show, my podcast today, the first unveiling of it, the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. And I need you on there this week with me too, by the way, Rio.
Get it.
I got to return the favor, man. But
Yes, sir.
yeah, Wednesday, tomorrow we'll be back at practice. And I do want to see the vibe, on the field and then back in the locker room. We go in the locker room because these guys, if they don't understand the urgency of getting a win Sunday, I don't know what else to tell you, man. This is a must win football game.
Yep.
And it's only week 2. For anyone saying, oh, it's not a must-win game, for everything that you need to do to make something better, you almost unequivocally have to win Sunday, because if you don't, it's going to get bad.
I believe Jay Gruden called this a code red game. Thank you all for watching this video today. This video and all videos are powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, home of the fastest payouts in the industry, and a 150% match bonus on your first 3 deposits for up to $2,000. Use code YouTube150. I'm out for right now. Hell to the Washington Commanders.